What is poppin' YouTube? Bringing you some players skyrocketing up my Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings. First player is going to be Nico Collins. And Nico Collins gets that massive extension from the Houston Texans. And you know for a while we've been discussing our love for Tank Dell. And pretty much I've loved Nico Collins. I had Nico Collins on a bunch of my rosters heading into last season. And then we saw the absolute blow up. I thought Nico Collins was probably going to bottom out somewhere around the wide receiver 17, wide receiver 16. But right now, if we're looking on Keep Trade Cut, my man just continues to rise up the board. He's at wide receiver 17 on Keep Trade Cut. In my personal Dynasty rankings, he's all the way up at wide receiver 15. I think with the explosion that we saw with him last year, we know he's tied with a quarterback in CJ Stroud for the foreseeable future. I know there's a lot of worry about Stephon Diggs in this offense. Hear me out. I hear you. But my thing is Stephon Diggs after the season can be cut. And I really do think it's just a one-year deal for Stephon Diggs. And I think Tank Dell, of course, is going to be there in the fold. So there is the worry that maybe Tank Dell, we saw the explosion with Tank Dell. And maybe Nico Collins can't replicate what he did last year. And you're having to compete with targets with Stephon Diggs, with Tank Dell. But Nico Collins was the wide receiver 7 on a points per game basis with 17.4 fantasy points per game. Let's say that goes down just a little bit because he's competing in an offense with Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. Let's say that gets to somewhere around like 16 fantasy points a game because maybe he doesn't have the best luck with the 8 receiving touchdowns. Maybe he doesn't have the 16.2 yards per reception. Maybe he doesn't get 109 targets. But I think when we're looking at it, the fact that he was this efficient, 80 receptions on 109 targets, can Nico Collins get 80 receptions in this offense? I think so. And I don't think it's going to be crazy to say that he could get 80 receptions next to Stephon Diggs and next to Tank Dell. So really for me right now, I think Nico Collins' value, as much as it's skyrocketed up Dynasty rankings as a whole, I think for my personal rankings, it's a little bit high. So I'm going to be trying to buy Nico Collins anywhere I really can when we're looking at some wide receivers in the same range. Would you rather have Nico Collins or Devontae Smith? I think we've seen that Nico Collins can be the clear alpha. I'll give the benefit of the doubt to Nico Collins. Brandon Ayuk or Nico Collins? I think that's an interesting one. Rome Odunze or Nico Collins? Rome Odunze gets the draft capital, a little bit unproven. Nico Collins tied to a really good quarterback. We think Caleb Williams is going to be a good quarterback. I'm just giving you guys some thoughts of what to be doing with Nico Collins because I do think Nico Collins rising up draft boards, and he should be very much so, like some Nico Collins as my first player rising Dynasty boards. Our next guy on this list is going to be Jared Goff. And Jared Goff, right now on Keep Trade Cut, player overall 45, QB 17. But when we're looking at the range of outcomes of where he's going, behind quarterbacks like Dak and Tua, ahead of guys like Drake May and JJ McCarthy, so ahead of some of these rookie level quarterbacks, going for somewhere around like a Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Travis Etienne, Brock Bowers type range. And for me, I am not this high on Jared Goff. Hear me out. I think Jared Goff is a very good quarterback. I think the fact that Jared Goff has essentially not have his career left for dead when he got traded from the Rams to the Detroit Lions was the QB 11 this last year, the QB 14 the year before that. And then all of a sudden we're looking at him this year and we're saying, hey, we still got Sam Laporta. We got him on our St. Brown. We're hearing good things about J-Mo finally. Maybe that year 3 breakout happens. We got Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery in the backfield. We got an elite level offensive line. Everything is turning out for Jared Goff. My thing is, I think Jared Goff is a better real life quarterback than an actual fantasy football quarterback. And I think a lot of this dynasty value, a lot of this dynasty push is based on the fact that he got a contract. So yes, he does have a little bit of longevity with him, but I don't necessarily think he has the upside of a lot of these other quarterbacks in the same range. Drake May, unproven, high level rookie for the New England Patriots. I think Drake May has a higher ceiling than Jared Goff. JJ McCarthy, I don't think JJ McCarthy is a good quarterback. I know Andrew over at the League FFB, he's a Minnesota Vikings fan, so he's probably going to hate this take, but I think JJ McCarthy, if all the upside hits with that offense, with Jordan Addison, with Justin Jefferson, with TJ Hawkinson, I think JJ McCarthy could end up being a higher level QB in both Dynasty and helping you win Dynasty Fantasy Football Championship. Bryce Young at QB 20. I think Bryce Young, his upside could potentially be there. I know we didn't necessarily see it, so you're going to say to me, Caleb, I'm not trading Jared Goff for Bryce Young straight up. That's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is in a year or two, we could be talking about Bryce Young ahead of Jared Goff on the Dynasty chart. So this is my thing. If I can get out of Jared Goff for any of these guys in the ring, Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Tua, Drake, JJ McCarthy, or Bryce Young, I would do it. Now, maybe you need to trade something on top, of course, to trade down to a guy like Bryce Young. But otherwise, I am totally gravy to be going and trading Jared Goff off of my teams. I think the little bit of rise in value based on that contract, we're pumping him a little bit too much. I would prefer to take some chances at a guy like a Drake May, a JJ McCarthy, even a Tua, to tear off of a guy like Jared Goff. Our next guy skyrocketing up Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings is going to be George Pickens. And George Pickens loses Deontay Johnson. The competition production is out of here. And all of a sudden, we're looking at George Pickens with either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields throwing in the ball. It's the best quarterback of his career. And my biggest concern about George Pickens is not his dynasty value going bonkers. I mean, he is currently right now at wide receiver 25. We're looking at him going up. Not only is he wide receiver 25, he is up 12 total spots this month. And I hear you. A lot of the exciting stuff about George Pickens being an ultimate level alpha. I mean, we've been talking about 2022. He did look good in his rookie season. 2023, he took that next step. But a lot of people have been arguing that George Pickens needs the full target share to be an ultimate level alpha. My thing is targets are earned, not given. And he really wasn't able to out-target Deontay Johnson in his first two seasons. Now, granted, he's not competing with a guy like Deontay Johnson anymore. So it is exciting. And I think a lot of dynasty managers are going to be really pumped about it because you're looking at the stats. 18.1 yards per reception, 1,400 air yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, 12.3 fantasy points per game. My biggest worry is that going to be what it's going to be? Can he get more than 106 targets? I mean, a lot of people are going to say yes because there's no one else to throw the ball to in this offense. But I think Pat Freiermuth takes a step up this year. We'll have to see what a guy like Roman Wilson can do coming in as a rookie. I think I'm just a little bit concerned that can George Pickens be that ultimate level alpha that we are expecting? And can that dynasty value be replicated? Because if we can get out of George Pickens for guys relatively in the same range, like a Jordan Addison, a Mark Andrews, can I get George Pickens traded for a guy like T. Higgins, who we feel a little bit better about? I think you can get into a guy where we've seen the proven production. We have similar outcomes, similar ceilings, better quarterback play. That makes me a little bit more excited for those players over a guy like George Pickens. Now, my final player we're going to be talking about today is Trey Benson. And in the dynasty running back landscape right now, it is absolutely crap. I mean, you get to about running back 8 and it starts to get a little bit nasty. Now, a lot of people are starting to hype up Trey Benson. He does get that round 3 pick 2 draft capital to the Arizona Cardinals. And we've seen James Conner produce fantasy football seasons of success the last few years. And I know we're a little bit worried about James Conner, that age, the way that he's getting older. But can Trey Benson actually be that dude that ends up overtaking James Conner this year? Personally, I do not think so. And I know this offense is going to be fun. You got Kyler Murray, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Trey McBride. And we'll have to see what happens with these two running backs in the backfield. And I think Trey Benson, his days to come, I mean, if you're looking at typical progressions of rookie running backs, I mean, take it back a few years when we had that elite level class with Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers. All those guys are really started to turn it on week 8 going forward. So there's a good chance that Trey Benson, as much as his dynasty value is shooting up, that's going to come soaring back down unless he can really produce at the beginning of the season. And as much as I would love to say that's going to be the case, unless there's a significant injury to James Conner, knock on wood, I got plenty of James Conner shares, don't want any of that. I just think Trey Benson is a little bit too valuable right now in dynasty rankings. I think the running back ranking is pretty much fine. I just think it's when you're looking at players around him, like Trey Benson's going ahead of Will Levis in Superflex leagues. Trey Benson's going ahead of Mike Evans, Travis Kelce. He's behind a guy directly like Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, and we've seen those two guys produce as a running backs in fantasy football. So I'm just, for me, I'm hype. I'm pumping the hype on Trey Benson. You let me know down below. I'm not an ageist. I do like getting young running backs that are talented on my team. Do not get me wrong. I'm just a little bit worried about Trey Benson and that overall value, and we'll have to see what happens. I think you can definitely, there's going to be a buy window that opens up at the beginning of the season, but you let me know what you think of these players that have skyrocketed up dynasty rankings. Are you buying them? Are you selling them? We're going to be putting out a few more dynasty videos before we really address that redraft content, so I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're new, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.